Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namatsami. If you go on one of Mr. Goenka's meditation retreats, so I don't know about now, but years ago, if you went onto one of these retreats, every day he would say something like, 3 days have gone, 7 more days to go. Trying to remind you that the days and the nights are relentlessly passing. And trying just to encourage us to practice. I don't know if he still does that now, but so we've got 2 more days to go after today. Saturday, Sunday. Sunday will be the end of the short retreat that we're doing. Emphasis on meditation, solitude, quietness. So these are things that some people will find quite difficult to achieve for various reasons, personality, whatever. But and yet they're things that are important to our lives as people interested in the spiritual path, are interested in the monastic life. As the Buddha says, the days and the nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? It's a good reflection. But it's not one that we should use to frighten ourselves with or to bash ourselves with, but just to reflect on the reality of this impermanent nature of our existence. Nothing stays. And of course, nothing stays, for nothing is for sure, and this was one of Ajahn Chah's main teachings. The impermanent nature of our existence. The impermanent nature of everything. It's just things have come into being. We can't rely on anything waiting for us. We can't rely on it staying as we would like it to be, staying as we are, to becoming to rely on things, staying as we're used to them being. The conditions may be good for practice for us at the moment, but things can change. In another year's time, we might not be able to have this sort of practice. There's something in the world might have changed to prevent us doing this. So we can take this for granted, say this short week or 10 days or whatever it was, take it for granted that next year we'll be able to do the same, and at the end of the winter retreat we'll be able to have another 10 days, and then during the year we'll be able to have another 10 days or 2 weeks. We tend to take this for granted in our monastic life, and yet, the world could change. Maybe we won't. This may be the last meditation retreat we might be able to go on. We can't be sure. Not sure. One of Ajahn Chah's most famous and most prominent teachings, not to take things too much for granted. So this reflection then about the days and nights passing, how well are we spending our time? Are we spending it so that it's useful for ourselves? We all have a tendency, I think I see it in myself, and perhaps some of you see it in yourselves, a tendency just to waste time or to do things that are not particularly useful for the advance of our practice. And the idea, I'll practice tomorrow. I'll get up early. I'll go to bed early tonight. I'll get up early tomorrow and I'll start my practice. I don't know how many times I've told myself that since I've been a monk. Of course, it's a delusion. So anyway, we've got 2 more days to have some practice our meditation and our solitude, and then we'll finish the retreat on the Sunday evening. And then after that, the winter retreat will go on in its usual fashion, we hope. And tonight is a special night. Today is a special day because it's a day when we honour our most respected, most famous elder, Ajahn Chah. He's the Thai monk that we like to say now he started this little tradition, this tradition that we're in, of the monks in Thailand and all over the world, monks and nuns in Thailand and monks and nuns all over the world, in this, what we call this Ajahn Chah tradition. Often when I go to live, like when I went to Brazil, or if I go to visit places, and people say, well, what sort of Buddhism is this? What tradition is this? And then I say, well, this is a Theravada tradition, and I explain that this is that I'm in the Ajahn Chah tradition. Sometimes they say, oh, you're different to the other monks that were here. And I say, well, I'm in this Ajahn Chah tradition. It's a little bit different tradition. And so he was a very good monk, a great man in himself, had a very good personality, was able to inspire others, and he had the ability to practice. He did a tough practice for many years. I understand he spent time wandering, spending a lot of time in the forests, and then spent a lot of time visiting other teachers, other monasteries, and learning from a lot of different people and a lot of different situations. Each situation he would put himself into, he would always do his own practice, so he would always look after himself and took responsibility for his own practice, never just let in, say, what was happening in a certain monastery or a certain place to affect him. And eventually after some years of practice, he met up with the famous Thai teacher Ajahn Mun, probably the most famous of all the forest monks of the 20th century in Thailand. Met him, got some teachings from him, and then eventually he went back to his an area just that was near his own village in the province of Ubon in northeast Thailand, and started to live in the forest nearby his village, just living under a mosquito net. Probably made a little platform for himself. He was just living there alone at first, doing getting on with his practice, and gradually other monks got to know him, got to saw what he was and what sort of a person he was attracted to come and practice with him. Living in that very austere way in a forest probably full of mosquitoes and snakes, and might have been one or two tigers around in those days as well, I suppose, before all the tigers was gone. And living in quite a tough, austere life. And people were attracted to him, and then gradually he began to be their teacher. More and more people came, and then gradually a monastery, I can't even say it. The monastery grew up around him, and more, and gradually it would turn into a very large monastery of men and women, monks and nuns, and he eventually became a very famous teacher. And then Ajahn Sumedho, as we know, went to see him, went to become his first Western disciple, and gradually other Western men from America, England, Canada, Australia, or different countries, went to study with him, to become monks, to become his disciples, and he started up this tradition of this Western tradition that we are in now, or that we are all associated with now, much to our good fortune. I've always found it quite interesting meeting those original disciples of Ajahn Chah, because they all have something in them that is very similar, almost the same. The two monks that I met first was Ajahn Jagaro and Ajahn Brahmawangsa, who started the monastery in Western Australia, where I went to as a layman to help them. And I did notice there was something very interesting, very different about them as people, as monks, they were very different people in themselves. I don't think you could have got two more different people managing to live together and start to create a monastery. But there was something in them that was like a thread that was the same. And Ajahn Sumedho, I'd already met him as well, and I saw this sameness. There was something very very similar, very familiar about them, those three. And then we had a visit at one time from Ajahn Anando, Ajahn Pasano, Ajahn Manindo came, I think, and I saw this thread run through all of them. Although they're all very different men, as monks, there was something the same. There was something very special, something very different, and one sees that in all these monks that were ordained by Ajahn Chah, these Western monks I'm speaking of really, is that they all do seem to have this thread running through them. There's something that they obviously they got from being taught by this man who has obviously liberated himself. But not only was he liberated, not only could he do a good practice, but he could teach others how to do the same. He could inspire. But it wasn't just inspiration, because as Lumpur tells us very often, inspiration in the end doesn't carry us, that far as regards to the practice. So there was obviously something more than just inspiration in his teachings. There was something very practical that they could pick up and that they could do. They could practice with. And so they all of those first Westerners, I find in all of them there's something very impressive. I didn't really want to give this talk tonight because I've never actually lived in Thailand for very much. I've just visited for short periods, and so I've never lived at Wat Pananachat and Wat Papong, and so I've never picked up really a great deal of that feeling of the closeness of Ajahn Chah or the personality of, or most of the information I've got is from his Western disciples that I've met, especially in Australia, the two I lived with for 7 years in Australia, and then from the books and the stories that we hear about Ajahn Chah. And this is, of course, a good source of information for us. But books, the words, of course, can be edited, and sometimes I think when we do read some of the books, I wonder, do we really get the message that he's trying to give us when we read the books and words and passages that have been edited by others? Maybe we don't always get what he was pointing to. Nonetheless, this is what we've got. We've not got Ajahn Chah here now to teach us in person, but we do have his teachings and his words. We're very fortunate that at the moment all these things are still here. These are teachings that we can use, because the beauty of Ajahn Chah's teachings, for me, is that they always point us back into ourselves. And where are we? Well, we're just in the present moment. That's where we are, and that's where we'll always be. So when his teachings point us back into our own hearts, into our own minds, they're pointing us back into the present moment. So although when you read his books or hear his stories, often he's talking about some things actually that you don't see so much around Great Geddiston, like tigers. I've never yet seen a cobra in St Margaret's. There might be a few around, but I saw a peacock. We had a peacock for a while, but I don't think he's ever mentioned peacocks. And you don't see too many people out planting the rice when it rains. So these sort of things that his teachings are about, often these cultural aspects, which at first when you read them seem very exotic. If we just read listen to his stories about these and just hold on to these stories, which is what some people do, of course. They don't put the teachings into practice, they just enjoy these sort of exotic stories. then in the end they don't really mean very much to us, because they're not about something that we are familiar with. Maybe that's why they enjoy them. But when we look at the practice that he's pointing to, when we take the teachings to heart, well, whatever the similes he uses, what he's actually pointing to is our own lives, is our own hearts, is our own defilements, is our own difficulties. I think most of us probably have more trouble with computers than we do with tigers. I did see a black cat today. I clapped my hands and he ran away, and there's a ginger Tom that hangs around this place. Looks a bit suspicious. Probably looking for something to eat, like everyone else. But you don't see too many cobras and that. So these sorts of things are not the things that we have a great deal of problem with around here. Our problems are with computers, getting a lift into town, and things like this. Other things that seem much more mundane than the exotic world of large snakes and big cats. But whatever the stories are, whatever the similar, because to him all these similes, they were in the moment, they were true, they were the difficulties in his life, they were what he had to put up with, the mosquitoes, the malaria, and all the rest of it. That was the reality of his existence. That was the reality of his culture, the culture that he lived in. The reality of our culture is getting a good server to get your emails up, or to get a computer that actually works or keeps working. So it's a slightly difference in culture, but what he's pointing to in those stories is, of course, always back into the heart, back into the human mind. That's where the problems. This is where our problems are, the problems of the personality. And of course, how these problems can manifest in any way we live, wherever we live, in any country. When I was in Brazil, Brazilian people are different to English people, different to other people, and everybody's culturally we're all different, and yet we all seem to have the same problems. When Brazilian people were telling me their problems, I was surprised to see that it was the same old problems that everybody else has everywhere else. Relationships and marriages and work and all the rest of it. Just the same old stuff, no matter how exotic people may seem to be. When we get down to the daily life and of the mind, of the heart, yes, the problems are all the same. So this is what Ajahn Chah's teachings point to. This is the Dhamma that he points to, is the Dhamma of each one of us, of each one's personality, the Dhamma of the heart. And this is why his teachings are so useful to so many people all over the world. Because although they may have exotic stories, the reality is this very moment, me here right now in this moment. This is what he's pointing to, because this is where the problems are. This is where liberation is for us. So I think we're very lucky to have a teacher and teachers like this, because of course all his disciples have taken this same path. They practice in the same way. Luang Por teaches us this way, and all of the other teachers that I've met in our tradition, they all teach in this way. The immediacy of our life in the present, and this is, of course, is a secret of his success. It wasn't just his charisma. There's been many charismatic teachers. But it's the way that he taught and what he taught, and the immediacy of it for everybody. We can, of course, grasp teachings and misunderstand them if we look too superficially at them. I remember in one place I was teaching, sometimes we were teaching countries where the English isn't the first language. And I was once teaching another countries I've taught in. I've had to have translators. Usually it's women, for some reason or other. Perhaps they've got more, I don't know, more ability with languages. I mean, But I had this young woman, well, she wasn't that young, but this woman was translating for me. And like everyone else in this tradition, I tend to use a little bit of humour, or try to, or what I think is humour, in the talk, sometimes to make quite a serious point, because life is difficult enough, and when we're teaching to lay people with their complex lives, to make a Dhamma point, sometimes it's good to use a little bit of lightness or a little bit of humour, so that they can see something that is something they can recognise, and helps them recognise the point. So I was telling a sort of bit jokey, telling a little bit of a joke around this point of Dhamma, and she started to she saw the joke in it, so she started to put on a funny voice, or what she thought was a funny voice. She sort of, I don't know if she's trying to mimic me or whether she was just trying to put on a funny voice to emphasise the funniness of what I was saying. And she got a good laugh. Everybody was chortling away and laughing and that. But I think she missed the point, because what she was emphasising with her funny voice was the joke. The fact that I told a joke, I said something funny, and it did make them laugh. But actually the joke or the funniness was pointing to, I didn't just make a joke to make people laugh. I made the joke to point to an aspect of Dharma that I was trying to get across. I think she missed that, actually. She just saw the joke as a joke. So to emphasise the joke, she told it in a funny voice. It didn't sound much like me. And she did it. She started to do it quite often, because she got quite a few laughs. And you know what it's like when you get a few laughs. When you're out the front, you get a few laughs. It does boost you up a bit. And I think she got a bit conceited. She was like the comedian. But I think she was missing the point in the end. And this is what we can do if we read Dhamma books or whatever too superficially. And of course, when teachings do come from other cultures, exotic cultures like Thailand or Malaysia or wherever, we can sometimes begin to read just the exotic aspects of them and the stories, but we can miss, if we're not careful, what it's actually pointing to, the Dharma that it's pointing to. And so, of course, sometimes editing can do this as well for us. So it's good to always to remember when we read. There's lots of Ajahn Chah books now, and lots of the other teachers, the Thai teachers and the forest teachers now, lots of books. It's always good for us to remember when we read their books and listen to their teachings, hear their stories, that even though they may be humorous, they may be interesting stories, is to try to remember what they're actually pointing to, because Ajahn Chah was usually pointing to something pretty serious, even though he would do it in a very humorous way. This was, of course, has been one of the secrets of his success. Because we do like humour. We like to hear a bit of humour in life. Life does have humour in it, but it can also, sometimes the Dharma can get very serious and make it seem a little bit too difficult for us to do, especially for people in the lay life. So having this day once a year to remember Ajahn Chah, because we have lots of pictures of Ajahn Chah around, which is good, so we can actually remember him all the time. But to have this day, bring out the candles and the flowers, shrine looks very beautiful, put out extra pictures of him, and try to bring him to mind, just bringing our teachers to mind, helps to uplift us and remind us that respect to the elders. They say in one of the verses of the Patimokkha, ever the elders honouring. So to honour the elders that went before us, did the hard work, and then gave us the teachings, so we can bring up a sense of gratitude, respect, and maybe even a sense of awe towards them, in thankfulness for the practice that they did, and the gains that they made, the liberation that they got, and then their ability to explain this to us. Just having this ability to explain the Dharma in such a way that we can pick it up and use it ourselves is something that's very wonderful. This is the way the Dharma gets passed down generation after generation. If we were just if it was just the Buddha and we was just reading the Buddha's words from, 2,000 years ago, maybe by now we probably wouldn't understand what he was talking about. But because the Dhamma is able to be passed down and to be retranslated generation after generation, it keeps it fresh, and it means that it's something that we can turn to, look at, and then begin to understand. Of course, we have to have a bit of patience at first, but gradually, as the practice works for us, we put a bit of effort, and as our meditation begins to work for us, just our lifestyle begins to work for us, just our spiritual path begins to unfold, and then we begin to really understand what the Buddha was talking about. Well, of course, we have to understand it on this personal level. We can all read, study the suttas and understand on an intellectual level, and of course this is very good for people to teach on this level because it's good to pass the information down. But if it's just left on this intellectual level, then it sometimes it doesn't go very deep into us, and it's not so useful. The Ajahn Chah and Sumedho and these teachers that we've been fortunate to meet up with over the years, these are the people who show us how to take it from an intellectual level down into the level of the heart, where it can begin to have an effect on us and over the years that we practice. An interesting thing happened when Ajahn Chah's cremation. Probably most of you know the story now. When the whole kit and caboodle caught fire, and the whole what was supposed to have been a nice, respectful cremation turned into a conflagration of flames and fire engines. And the whole stupa seemed to be alight with smoke pouring out of all the entrances of the stupa in Thailand on the full moon night of the cremation of Ajahn Chah. And everyone said, "Oh, this is his last lesson to us." Not sure. Don't be sure that things are going to happen as you think they are. As in 2002, I spent the winter retreat in Italy, and in Italy there's Ajahn Jitindro, there's a Thai monk there. Ajahn Jitindro became a novice, I think, when he was about 14, and he was a very, very good novice. And I think he became one of the novices that used to look after Ajahn Chah when he was living at Wat Pah Pong. So he knew Ajahn Chah very well. And that year, in 2002, it came to January the 16th, and there was going to, in Italy there, and there was going to be a big dana that day. All these Thai people were going to come and bring dana for us. So we was having some very nice weather. It was nice winter weather. It was fairly cold, but it was nice and clear, and it was very pleasant Italian weather. And so that day there wasn't going to be any cooking for the dana. We were just going to rely on this dana that was going to come from Rome, mostly from Rome, I think. And we were just waiting in the morning, and then about 9 o'clock it started to snow. Suddenly the weather just changed from this called a nice sunny weather to this. It just started to snow. These snowflakes come twinkling down. Gradually it snowed heavier. The snow got heavier and heavier, and by the time 11 o'clock come, which is the time of the mealtime, it was really snowing hard, and all the roads were blocked up, and the people couldn't come. In the end, all the roads got blocked up, and the people arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. On this day, this was the Ajahn Chah's birthday, the 16th of January. So we all said to Ajahn Jitindra, "Oh, there you are, he's teaching you a lesson." Not sure. not sure the dinner's going to turn up, the lunch is going to turn up. And the Garikas had to run out pretty quick and get some food going because nobody turned up for the dana. But it was strange how on that day, the day just it changed from a very nice sunny day to this very thick, heavy snowfall. So I hope you have found this time that we've been meditating together has been useful for yourself. I have. My mind's beginning to settle down now. My meditation is improving. It's a bit of a struggle at first, and probably the rest of you as well. Changing from the work mode of the year before the winter retreat, and then coming straight into a meditation retreat like this, where we're actually meditating a lot, something most of us probably haven't done for a while. It takes the time for the mind, for the heart to settle down, but I hope most of you are settling down. No, seem to be, and I am beginning to settle down and quite enjoying the periods of meditation. The mind is like this. It doesn't just change from one mode to another. It takes a little time for it to settle, because usually the world that we live, the way we live, even if we live in a monastery, we can be quite busy, lots of different things going on, and there's a tendency for us to become used to this state of mind that is always chewing something or sorting something out. And when that's suddenly taken away from us, and we're given the opportunity for us to sit, although the body's willing to sit there, sometimes the mind isn't, and so there can be a tendency for it to seek distractions, and to certainly to find something to do, or to feel a sense of frustration or discomfort during the sit-ins. And being as in this tradition, we don't have really fixed meditation techniques. If you go into the Burmese monasteries or meditation centres or other meditation centres, Goenka, they all usually have one fixed type of meditation that everybody is doing, and there's always a strong emphasis to work with that system or that method of meditation, which in some ways can make it easier because everybody's doing the same thing. But in our tradition, we have a lot more space. We have a lot more freedom to find what works for yourself, what works for you, what is the meditation that you like to do, or how you like to do it. And so this in itself is something that people can find a bit difficult, because they really do have to start to rely on yourself, on themselves. And so this is something that is very good for us, because it means that in the end we do have to seek, we do have to really look into ourselves. What is it that will help my mind to settle? What is it that will help me to focus? What shall I focus on? What is a good focus for me, that my mind will become interested in? Because when a mind's not interested in self, we give our mind a meditation object, but the mind isn't interested in it, well then it's not likely that it will focus on it, or you will get a great deal of concentration. After a time it will just become bored of it, and then the mind becomes restless, and then we're back to the same old thing. But this is a good encouragement for us to begin to investigate our own hearts, our own minds. What is it that my mind will settle down with? What is it that I can pick up and investigate, take an interest in, that will give me that interest, that will arouse the energy for the meditation. So to a certain extent, this is left up to us to find, to seek for. But we do it within, of course, the guidance of, say, using the breath, the Anapanasati the breathing was what Ajahn Chah seems to have been his main meditation, seems to have been the breath. When you read the books, he tends to always be pointing to the breath, and using this mantra Buddho. This was the mantra of the forest tradition in Thailand. It's just this one, using this one word, Buddho, meaning to be awake, and just using this word Buddho just as a mantra with the breath. And it's a very simple form of meditation that is often used in our tradition. But of course, as usual, in the simplicity, sometimes arouses the difficulties. Sometimes what their mind is seeking is complexity, because that's what it's used to. Outside of meditation periods, of course, we live in quite a complex world. There's an old Chinese curse that says, "May you be born in interesting times." If you think about it, it's quite an interesting. Because there's nothing more devastating to meditation than interesting things going on around you. Interesting things to get into. And so the simplicity of meditation is something, of course, that is people find difficult, especially when they're at home or they're by themselves or they've got to just look after themselves. This very simplicity can be the thing that people find difficult, because we are so used to complexities now. And this is the beauty of just coming and sitting together, of using this period of coming to sit in as a group of people, because when we sit together, that encourages us. It helps us. It's when we know that other people are sitting around us, sitting still, going through the same difficulties. This is a great encouragement for us when we're just later on, perhaps when we're going to be sitting alone, maybe coming here, sitting by yourself, or sitting in your kuttis. Then the whole way of meditation, the difficulties, change for us, because then we've got to really start to look for ourselves. But it's always good to ask questions and to find someone to give advice, to get advice from. And there was saying before, the various types of meditation. This the Anapanasati, of course, is the basic meditation that we use in this tradition, watching the breath and using this mantra Buddho with the breath to try to keep the mind with the breath. Often the mind actually wants something to do, just to try to let it just be still. It doesn't work for it. So it wants something to do, and this can be the use of mantras or the use of these sayings. One of the sayings I like to use is there's no one to be, there's nothing to do, and there's nowhere to go. This is, of course, one of the sayings of Ajahn Chah. He's pointing here to liberation. He's pointing here to anatta, isn't he? No one to be, nothing to do, nowhere to go. Sounds a bit silly, really, doesn't it? Because there is someone to be, it's me. I've got to do the meditation. Something to do, and there's lots of places to go. But if you begin to contemplate a phrase like this, using it with the meditation, using it with the breath, and begin to contemplate the phrase itself, you can see why he's pointing to something beyond just the usual way of seeing or understanding, say, a phrase like this. I find it quite an interest over the years. I find it quite an interesting, almost like a little koan, really, to contemplate. Other things that Ajahn Chah used to use the 32 parts of the body to contemplate the body in a way to break down its solidity. I think I talked about that before at the beginning of the retreat. So even these 32 parts of the body can be used with the breath, just saying one part of the body, each part of the body, just with the breath, with the in-breath or the out-breath, just to keep the mind. It just gives the mind something to do, but it stops it wandering. It keeps its focus of attention just around the idea of the body meditation, body contemplation. And then the using the sound of silence for those people that have found that a useful meditation, or that Lumpur Sumedho teaches over the years, finding this listening, this bringing the attention to this sound, humming sound, or however you describe it, the cosmic hum, I think he calls it. This is just a way of just holding the attention. It's not something that you have to really do, but you have to let it do itself. And then the whole emphasis is just on this listening or just hearing. And this is quite an interesting way of meditation, because it means that all of our attention, all of our focus, or all of our effort then is just in listening, just hearing, which is quite not a usual way for us to be. We always feel that we've got to do something. So even with the breathing meditation, sometimes we actually think that we are doing the breathing. Oh, I've got to do the breathing. I've got to breathe. Actually, if you leave it alone, the body breathes. The body knows how to breathe, and the body will breathe for you. And then just the attention is just on, the emphasis is just on watching, developing mindfulness, developing this ability to pay attention, to watch. And this is the important factor, because if we learn to watch, we learn to observe the moment, observe our minds, observe our hearts, then what we see is that which arises into them. It's not so difficult for us to think along certain lines. If we want to think out an idea or think in a certain way, it's not so difficult for us to do that and keep the mind going on a certain subject. But when we just watch, if we just sit and watch, it's much more difficult for us then just to allow, say, thoughts to come in and to be able to keep this watching going, because usually what we do is just get lost in the thoughts. As the thoughts begin to rise, as they go on, then gradually they take us away, and then we find ourselves lost in thought. So this developing this ability, say on the breath or on the sound of silence, is just this ability to watch, just to keep the attention just on focused on one object, is what you're really trying to achieve. So that then once we've developed this ability, then whatever then comes into the mind, it can be seen without being followed. And when we don't follow our thoughts, this is where they don't bring us into suffering. Suffering doesn't arise from that, because when we're able to see them, able to let them go, to judge whether they are worth following or not. Are they worth following? Is this a good process to follow, to carry on? Or is it something just to let go of and allow it to pass? When we follow thoughts, often they would just lead us into, well, I find anyway, following my thoughts leads me into all sorts of difficulties. Because you begin to believe whatever comes into the mind. When you start to believe that, then we start to be shaped or moulded by it in our attitudes to others. So the more that we can actually see thoughts or feel feelings and just be able to observe them, then we can see actually where suffering arises around them. And then when we don't follow them, then we're able to let go of that suffering ceases there. And that's the idea of this development of mindfulness, attention, that we're actually trying to develop in this time. That's why it's useful to have periods like this where we do support each other with silence, we do support each other with presence coming together. It makes practice easier for us for a while, and it does allow us in that time to develop a certain amount of this mindfulness, a certain amount of this presence or attention, and then we can begin to develop that in ourselves. We can't always rely on people being with us, supporting us, and eventually we have to go into the situation where we have to start to develop that, find skillful means to develop that for ourselves without maybe the support of others. And that's where the difficulty of meditation is for a lot of people. This is why it's good to have some pujas in the morning and the evening, because we start the day together with this help for our meditation, and we finish the day together with this help for our meditation. And then this is something that can help us a great deal when we're on our own trying to develop the meditation. So I hope this last few days has been useful to you and to a certain amount enjoyable. It has been for me. It's good to see myself settling down, and I hope the next couple of days will continue to be this way as well. Can't think of anything else to say, so I'll finish there.